House will come back to order. House will come back to order. Mr. Clerk, would you ring the bell? Clerk will read the caption to a group of privilege resolutions.
Commending and recognizing Dr. Walter Laracy, recognizing and commending the contributions of the Giving Kitchen in Georgia, commending the contributions of independent bookstores in Georgia, and recognizing April 27, 2019 as Independent Bookstore Day at the state capitol, commending all Vietnam era and Vietnam War veterans and their families in the Vietnamese community in this state, and commemorating the 50th honoring the National Vietnam Veterans Day. Recognizing and commending Ann Tarpley for receiving the Political, Social, and Civil Engagement Award for 2019. Recognizing and commending Dr. Donna McBride for receiving the Excellence in Education Award for 2019. Recognizing and commending Judge Holly Veal for receiving the Lady Justice for All Award for 2019. Recognizing and commending Tina Quinn for receiving the Humanitarian Award for 2019. Recognizing and commending Dr. Elna Pollard for receiving the Trailblazer Award for 2019. Recognizing and commending the exhibit of Origins and Belongings drawn from Atlanta at the High Museum in Atlanta. Commending and congratulating Alexis Sanders. Commending and congratulating Shelby Brown. Commending and congratulating Ariana Sanders. Commending Valerie Vega, Carterville High School's 2018-2019 star teacher. Commending Ethan Boone, Carterville High School's 2018-2019 star student. Recognizing and commending Mike and Debbie Sorrow on the occasion of their retirement from Southwest Christian Care. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation's 2019 Board of Governors Award recipients, Bill and Faith Collins. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation's 2019 Business Award recipient, the Ball Corporation. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation's 2019 Award of Honor recipient, Barbara Benedetto. Recognizing and commending the Heart of Community Foundation's 2019 Award of Honor recipient, Harry Brock. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation's 2019 Award of Honor recipient, Tanika King. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation's 2019 Award of Honor recipient, Nancy Knight. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Communities Foundation 2019 Award of Honor recipients, Jeff and Margaret Maurer. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation's 2019 Award of Honor recipients, Mark Webb. Recognizing and commending the Heart of the Community Foundation 2019 Young Heart Award recipient, Chaz McClintock. Recognizing and commending Robert Flash Gordon. Commending the 2019 House Committee on Higher Education interns Christopher Walton and Miriam Goodfriend for their exemplary service. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none and the resolutions are adopted. Chair recognizes Chairman Tanner for a motion.
I move that this House insist to the House substitute to Senate Bill 200.
Chairman Tanner has moved that the House insist on its position on Senate Bill 200. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 200 by Senator Gooch, the 51st speech of the 21st, to be entitled An Act to Amend Article 4, Chapter 2, Title 32, the official code of Georgia, annotated, relating to exercise of power to contract by the Georgia Department of Transportation.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tanner to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just want to send it back to the Senate on an insist, and that way we can get to conference.
Chairman Tanner has moved that the House insist on its position on Senate Bill 200. Is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and this House has insisted on its position on Senate Bill 200. Chair recognizes Chairman Watson for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House to HB 512.
Chairman Watson has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 512 as amended by the House. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 512 to be entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 8 of Title 2, the official code of Georgia, annotated, relating to agricultural commodities promotion, so as to provide for an agricultural commodity commission for propane.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson to explain the Senate substitute and the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. The Senate substitute just had some changes with the formation of the commission, the propane commission that we passed out of this body. They wanted to make the equal appointments, so we were good with that. The additional amendment by this body is giving the Department of Agriculture the ability to write rules and regulations for amending the fertilizer, liming, and soil amendments as it relates to industrial byproducts. And allowing them to communicate with EPD about those issues, and that's what's in the amendment. And I appreciate your support.
You have no questions? First of all, is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 512 as amended by this House, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 156, the nays are 7. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 512 as amended by this House. Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House accept this Senate substitute to House Bill 478 as amended by the House.
Chairman Ballinger has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 478 as amended by this House. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 478 to be entitled An Act to Amend Article 8 of Chapter 5 of Title 49 of the official code of Georgia, annotated, relating to the Central Child Abuse Registry, so as to provide improvements to the operation of the Child Abuse Registry.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House amendment just corrects a Scrivener's error on lines 191. And also there was a minor amendment about process and service that was made in the Senate to House Bill 478. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions?
Thank you. I encourage your favorable consideration of House Bill 478.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 478 as amended by this House, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the lady's motion, the ayes are 166, the nays are 1, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 478, as amended by this House. Chair recognizes Chairman Alan Powell for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask this House to insist on Senate Bill 214, the House position that we'd sent over to them.
Chairman Powell has moved that this House insist on its position on Senate Bill 214. Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 214 to be titled an act to amend Chapter 10 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to barbers and cosmetologists so as to change the number of apprenticeship hours required for cosmetologists.
Chair recognizes Chairman Powell to explain his motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the bill went over to the Senate, and best I can tell, last Friday they tried to amend it back with the language of cutting the apprenticeship hours, and the Senate defeated their own amendment, or the amendment that was brought by the author. They in turn came back today and they put some other questionable language into the bill, and we need to insist on our position that kept it clean, and let's see where we can go from there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen.
Chairman Powell has moved that this House insist on its position on Senate Bill 214. Is there any objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the House has insisted. Chair recognizes Chairman Smith for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 99 as amended by the House.
Chairman Smith has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 99 as amended by the House. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 99 to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to insurance so as to provide for modernization and updates.
Chair recognizes Chairman Smith to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate substitute is a insurance department bill. It was the same one that was passed out in 2018 that failed to make it to for a House agree. It amends the insurance code. And it's a captive insurance company insures the risk of the owner. The amendment from the House is the House Amendment Section 31-1-18 extends that's a highly successful housing tax credit program for qualified Georgia low-income housing credits. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
I have no questions. Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 99 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? What purpose does Representative Carson rise?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 133, I ask to be excused from this vote.
Gentleman has that right, and the record will so reflect. Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, the nays are 2, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 99 as amended by this House. Chair recognizes Chairman Gerald Green for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 165.
Chairman Green has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 165. The clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 165 authorizing the conveyance of certain state-owned real property located in Chatham County, Clayton County, Colquitt County, Forsyth County, Hall County, Monroe County.
Chair recognizes Chairman Green to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Resolution was passed, 165 was passed out of the House over to the Senate, and the Senate has added a couple of more counties in regard to some our annual conveyances. And I appreciate your favorable support to House Resolution 165 by Senate substitute. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Do you take any questions?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon to your left for a question.
Thank you. Do you yield?
Yes, I do.
Can you help us understand what these conveyances are as it relates to Clayton County?
To which county?
Clayton.
That was in the previous, that was the one that we did previously, which was the farmer's market, where we added, farmer's market was going to we added a little provision in there to where we could, to the DOT, where they could widen that exchange there. Mr. Speaker, if there's no more questions, I yield the
No
will.
more questions. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 165, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 165. Chair recognizes Chairman Green for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 182.
Chairman Green has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 182. The clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 182, authorizing the grant of non-exclusive easements for the construction, operation, and maintenance of facilities, utilities, roads, and ingress upon or through the property owned by the state of Georgia in Barrow, Camden, Cobb, Floyd, Houston, and White counties.
Chair recognizes Chairman Green to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the Senate added 4 more easements, one in Forsyth County, one in Hall County, one in Jeff Davis County, and Montgomery County, and Paulding County. And I would ask your favorable support to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 182. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
No questions. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 182, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 168, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 182. I hope that I wanted to make a little recognition here. I'm not sure if he is here as a former member of this body or a legispouse. But we have in the back of the room former State Representative Earl Earhart, now married to Representative Jenny Earhart. Thank you for being with us. Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I've ever seen you this relaxed on a day 40 ever. Chair recognizes Chairman Tankersley for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 346 found in folder number 2.
Chairman Tankersley has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 346. Clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 346 honoring the lives of Caitlin Baggett, Morgan Bass, Emily Clark, Abby DeLoach, and Catherine McKay Pittman, and dedicating a bridge in their memory.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tankersley to explain the Senate substitute.
The Senate substitute simply adds to House Resolution 346 the names of those that they wish to honor with road or bridge namings. I ask for your favorable consideration. If there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have no questions. On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 346, all those in favor will say aye or vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. I'm glad y'all haven't lost your sense of humor today. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the lady's motion. The ayes are 164, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 346. Chair recognizes Representative Rogers for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute to HB 220.
Representative Rogers moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 220. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 220 to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 8 of Title 12 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding solid waste management.
Chair recognizes Representative Rogers to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is actually something that the Senate did right. This is the bill, this is the hazardous waste and solid waste bill that we passed out of here 164 to 4 before, and all they did was add 2 words. It's just clarified a little bit about the fees. It was just basically nothing to it. It was something that added some clarity, didn't change anything whatsoever. Mr. Speaker, I'll stand for questions. If not, I'll
You have no questions.
Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 220, all those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 164, the nays are 3. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 220. Chair recognizes Representative Reeves for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move at this time that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 352.
Representative Reeves has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 352. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 352 to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 4883 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating exemptions from sales and use taxes.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is very simple. This is the projects of regional significant sales tax exemption. And the original House version, the sunset was to take place in 2024. and the Senate substitute brings the sunset down to expire in 2021. I will yield for any questions.
You have no questions.
Yield the well.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 352, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 155, the nays are 11. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 352. Chair recognizes Representative Gilliard for a motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House accept the Senate amendment for House Bill 79 as amended by the House.
Representative Gilliard has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute, House Bill 79, as amended by the House. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 79 to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 4, Title 30 of the Fiscal Code of Georgia annotated relating to the rights of persons with disabilities so as to provide that blind persons shall not be discriminated against by the courts.
Chair recognizes Representative Gilliard to explain the Senate substitute and the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, this is a simple amendment on the clarification of the Senate amended just a little parable of health and physical, which is a part of the federal law that any parent that is trying to get custody of a child or to be a caretaker, that they must be in the perfect, not perfect, but in health and their physical must be compatible to be a parent. That is the Senate amendment. And the House amendment just gives the clarification on lines 2, from blind to legally blind, and on line 9, replacing blindness with the disability of being blind. We are just trying to make sure that we're in concordance with the federal law. I ask for your favorable consideration on these amendments.
You have no questions?
Mr. Speaker, I yield the well and ask for your consideration.
Is there any
on House Bill
objection?
79.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? It is HB 79 AM 410467. Any objection? Chair hears none. The House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 79 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 79 as amended by the House. Chair recognizes Representative Hogan for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to Senate substitute to House Bill 445.
Representative Hogan has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 445. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 445 to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 4, Chapter 5 of Title 12, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to shore protection, so as to revise various provisions relative to shore protection.
Chair recognizes Representative Hogan to explain the Senate amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Line 84 through 88 in the original bill is out of the bill, and it applies, this is what applied to Sea Island, but now it's a standard up and down the coast and applies to everybody equally. This bill passed out of the House originally 3519 with 113 yeas and 54 nays.
Do you yield for a couple of questions?
I'd rather not. It's been discussed and over and over, Mr. Speaker, and I think everybody's well aware of the bill, so I'll yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 445, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Cannon rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the Shore Protections Act is the property owner's first defense against flooding and storm surge, because the local governments don't have beachfront setbacks more than 25 feet?
If the lady so states, I'm sure that she knows that about which she speaks. What purpose does Representative Cowsher rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that in this bill it states that decks, patios, and elevated crossroads defined as minor activities will no longer have a public review, but it will be decided by the DNR commissioner now?
If the lady so states, I'm assuming she has read the bill and the substitute. What purpose does Representative Evans rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that reinforced bridge over sand dunes could be classified as a minor activity?
I don't have an opinion on that. What purpose does Chairman Ron Stevens rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that after working on this bill for a decade, that this is the best compromise that we can come from property owners without taking their property? And this is something that most of us on coastal Georgia agree that we need to vote on.
Well, I had a member tell me earlier today that it had been worked on for 20 years. That's 2 decades, so it is. It's been talked about here a while. I will agree on that. What purpose does Representative Al Williams rise?
Inquiry.
State your inquiry.
I don't know about the 20 years, but is it not true that 17 years ago when I represented the coast, this was a big question, but is it not also true that it was requested that an adjustment be made where there was some unfair exclusions, and that has been done? And this bill is truly, after all these years, the best one we've been able to come up with.
I know the gentleman has a strong interest in this. What purpose does Representative Saines rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that coastal landowners face some of the most difficult, devastating local conditions at points in their properties, and that this is a bill that gives them some clean regulation to ensure the state's doing their part and allowing them to stay in the beautiful coast of Georgia?
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. What purpose does Chairman Knight rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it further not true again that this is a bill that has been vetted for many years now that will provide reasonable solutions to the issues on the coast? Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, is it not true?
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true.
Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, one more parliamentary.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the locals have nothing to do with this? That this is a state issue in regards to state waters, and that just throwing up the issue of a local government is doing nothing but muddling the water and confusing
no
the members?
Intended, right? Chair recognizes. We'll do one more inquiry. Chair recognizes Representative Oliver.
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true for those of us who are native Georgians for many decades have appreciated the fact that Georgia has, better than any state on the East Coast, protected our coastline, wish to vote against this bill to continue to protect our coastline?
I believe that to be true. Okay. Have all members now voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 93, the nays are 75, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 445. Okay, I know we had a long stand down, but it's going to take a little dinner break. First of all, Chair's going to recognize Chairman Beverly for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Georgia House Democratic Caucus will have dinner in room 514, and then we will move to 506 for a brief meeting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
This House will be in recess for dinner until 7:30 p.m.